Today I am reviewing Wipeout 2048. This is a launch title for the PlayStation Vita, and this is also the perfect game for you guys to pick up that are looking to get your racing fix on your new handheld. The Wipeout series is definitely known for its awesome futuristic look, its hovering ships and everything, as well as its high learning curve. The last Wipeout game I actually played was Wipeout Pure, which launched with the original PSP, so it would have been quite some time since I had familiarized myself with this series, and I have to say, I dove right into this one and I was hooked right from the beginning. The first thing that really stood out to me were the graphics. I mean, I was hoping they would because, come on, this is the Vita here, we gotta launch with some pretty looking games. And I would definitely say that this is the best looking Vita game after Uncharted. And in terms of the frame rate, to me personally, I thought it looked great, in the single player at least. It ran really steady, I didn't see many drops in the frame rate, and that's really impressive considering that this game has some crazy rendering going on. The levels speed by super fast. I mean, there's explosions going off everywhere, really detailed courses, and I was super impressed at how it looked. However, when you delve into the multiplayer, I'll get to that later, the frame rate does start to drop there. But in terms of the single player, how it works is there's different ship variants. You have a speed ship, you have an agility ship, and a fighter ship. The speed ships are the fastest, but they lose out on handling and health. Agility is sort of all around, but they tend to cater towards handling more. And then the fighter ships, they have their heavy firepower, a lot of health, but they definitely lack some handling and speed. But they do have access to more heavy weapon fire. And then you get into the single player, and it has branching paths in its campaign mode. So you start off with one node to choose, and it's a race. And once you pass that, it'll open up another race. And then from there, it branches off in different ways that'll lead you to different car unlocks. There's only races, combat stages, a zone mode, and then time trials. So it is kept pretty basic in terms of the campaign, which is not bad because they really focus down on these core gameplay elements and they really refine them out rather than adding in all kinds of additions that might have made the package feel a little bit less polished. So in the race modes, you do have 8 ships per race, and typically it's 3 laps. Sometimes it can be 5, sometimes it can be even 10 when you get towards the later part of the game. And your main goal is to come in first, obviously, but in this game it's even more important because it essentially doubles the experience that you earn. So there's 2 different passes in terms of when you finish a course. You can get the green pass, which basically means you met the minimum requirements, and then there's the gold pass, which means that you met, you came in first place, you did everything that they asked plus more. So one course might say, okay, finish at least 3rd, you get the green pass, that's 10,000 experience, and then to get the elite pass you have to finish in first, and then you get 20,000 experience. So it makes a huge difference in terms of how you level up. Also, during most races you can use weapons, and sometimes they lock it out. Some challenges will say, okay, no weapons, or you're only limited to 1 or 2 certain kinds of weapons, but most of the time you can use all the weapons. And this also does carry over into the combat mode, so while the races have them, so does combat. And combat mode actually takes place in the same exact tracks that you race on. So you're saying to yourself, so what's the difference between racing and combat if it's the same tracks, the same weapons and everything? Well, in combat mode, you're obviously supposed to destroy the other ships, and you earn points by doing this, but you don't just get points by destroying ships, you also get points for just shooting enemy ships, depending upon which weapon you use. But the real difference here is that you can actually reverse in the course. By pressing up on the right joystick, your ship will automatically turn around and go in the reverse direction. So this allows for some interesting strategies because you can instantly turn your ship around and fire at ships that might have been driving up behind you. And believe it or not, I really didn't care for the combat mode to begin with at the start of the game, but once I got the hang of things, this was definitely my favorite part of the game. It's so chaotic, so hectic, it was just so much fun, especially with all the explosions going off and everything. The next part of the game that was so awesome that I actually wish that they would have made the whole game look like this, and that are the zone races. And these are special events that get rid of all, AI racers. There's no weapons, no nothing. You don't even have to accelerate, it automatically accelerates for you. And it puts you in these beautifully stylized, colorful, vibrant levels that are essentially every course in the game. And then they tell you, okay, you have to do this many laps around the course without exploding. So it starts off slow, and the more and more laps that you do, the faster and faster it gets, to the point where you can't control your ship anymore, you crash and you explode. This is one of the biggest highlights in the game for me because these tracks look amazing. The frame rate actually does go up when you race on these tracks because they're rendering less textures. But I wish that they would have allowed you to race on these tracks against enemy racers or online or something. That definitely would have been really cool. When it comes to the controls, they're defaulted to letting you use your air brakes, which is crucial to playing the Wipeout series, to the square button. And to shift to the side, which allows you to finesse and fine-tune your turns, Like if you had to make an emergency brake to the left or the right to avoid hitting into a corner, you do that by double tapping on square, and then you steer using the left joystick. I started off playing this way, but I actually found that I preferred the classic controls, which lets you remap the air brakes to the left and right shoulder buttons, and your gas to the X button. I just felt that I had more control this way, and it's also very important that you choose a ship that you're comfortable with, because they all control very differently, and some of them turn a little bit looser, some of them have tight turning. So there's definitely a high learning curve. You're going to have to practice a lot to be able to make it through the courses, especially later on in the game, because you're going to be smacking into the walls and other ships, and your ships do have life meters, so if you take enough damage you're going to explode and you're going to lose the race. Also, I wanted to mention that the music fits extremely well with the atmosphere. It's got a lot of techno, dubstep type of music, but when it comes to the futuristic setting of the game, I think it fits extremely well. And in addition to the single-player campaign, there's also an online campaign, which is totally separate from the single-player in terms of the way that you advance on the grid map. In this one, you have your own objectives, which will say, okay, just finish the event and hit any enemy with a weapon, and things get more and more advanced as you level up and move on, but it supports up to 8 players online, and this is definitely a really fun mode to play in. Unfortunately, I did notice though that the frame rate does take quite a hit in this mode. It drops down a lot lower than it does in the single player mode, but it's still a lot of fun to play against human opponents rather than AI, especially in the combat levels. So all in all, I would definitely recommend Wipeout 2048 to fans of racing games. But like I said, just keep in mind, it's not the easiest one to get into, especially if you've never played the series before. It's going to take a bit of practice. But if you are having some problems making those tight corners, the game does have a turn assist, which I did not get a chance to use because I just refused to use it. But for those of you that are struggling and having trouble playing the game, they do have that option. Other than that, guys, definitely this is one of the best Vita titles you can pick up for the system right now. Definitely check it out.